Hey y'all, Donna here. I'm going to try to go through as quickly as possible with this without any cuts or anything like that because I'm having issues with my storage and I'm having to do this straight from YouTube and I don't know how to clip all that. I don't know how to work with all that. So, I'll get better as I go along and do all the things I want to do with quality and editing. But I want to put this video out there because I figure this is pretty important and other people may be suffering and dealing with this sort of thing and kind of lost and all over the place on what they should be doing. So, being as I've been through this, and that's what I want to discuss. Healing autistic like symptoms. I say autism because I see so many kids nowadays who have, one or two symptoms here and there, and then it's really just neurological damage is what it is. So, healing that and healing SPD as well, sensory processing disorder. And maybe not even healing these things because that's not guaranteed, but it could help improve the situation. It can help symptoms improve if nothing else. So, I'm going to start with my son, who is now 3.5 years old. He started developing these symptoms after he turned 1 year. So it was his 12 months. He went in and got his shots for 12 months, which is they give MMR and DTaP. They give a few more boosters that they've already been getting throughout that year, but that's the largest set they get within that first. No, I take that back because at 2 months they get like 8 doses there. So 1 year anyway, that more they get one in each limb, and then I think they double up on one arm or one leg, or maybe a arm and a leg. Anyway, it's a lot, and it's a lot for these children to take. And I never thought anything about it. I didn't know much about all that. So it was after I started seeing these symptoms manifest that I started researching and looking at other kids who were having these sorts of issues, and autism kept popping up over and over and over and over. And I was watching all these videos of autistic kids, and I was like, oh my god, he does this, he does that, he won't eat his food now. So I should say first, before all this, he was very well developed. He ate all sorts of foods. He spoke pretty well. He was one, so he didn't have a huge vocabulary, but he was learning words, and he enunciated very, very well. Like, he would go around saying hots, hots. He would sound out every, letter, and now he can't make those sounds the same way. He can't say hot to this day. I mean, he could say other things, but his speech he has issues with it now, so. So his speech was really well. He ate really well. He was very well developed before all this. And like I said, he got his shots. And one of the first things I noticed was diarrhea that went on for weeks. And this is another common denominator. If you look at any autism story, they all start with diarrhea and gut issues, and sometimes they go back and forth between diarrhea and constipation, and they just have all these gut issues. At the same time, he got hand, foot, and mouth. So it was weird. I was watching this play out, and it was almost like his immune system was kind of going haywire, like it didn't know what to do. It was trying to deal with something, and it was losing the battle. I immediately went out and got some probiotics, and I started researching, and this is when I started, the diarrhea started getting better, but then I started noticing other symptoms, like he would start walking on his toes, tiptoes, and that's a sensory thing. That's at the time people thought it was cute, but it's a thing with the equilibrium and the way they process sound and things like that through their. Anyway, so he was tiptoe walking. He was doing some hand flapping, not very often. That was, I think, when you see the manifestations like the hand flapping and the more severe stuff, that's when it's really, really apparent. But until you see that sort of thing, it seems like, a kid that's just acting out all the time. Like he would just dart off. We had to get a leash, because in a backpack with the leash, because we could not go anywhere without him darting off. We hadn't, sat down and went out to eat anywhere, and we can't do that with him. He's getting better. Like I said, he can sit still for longer now and things like that. But going over some more of the symptoms, I'm trying to remember, because I should have made a list, because every time I go over this with someone, I know I end up leaving several things out. I know at the time I was counting 10 plus, symptoms that were not typical, that, just all over the place. Behavior was an issue. He would wake up in the night just screaming and shouting, and I'd, be like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Did you have a bad dream?" And it never, I don't know. It was like some kind of pain that I couldn't pinpoint. I couldn't help him with. So we went through a lot of these issues, and just I was trying to detox him. I didn't know what else to do. I was trying to do it the safest way I knew how, because at this point I thought he was had heavy metal toxicity or something like that. So I was doing just numerous things that I've heard on the internet of these expensive sprays, zeolites, and doing the detox baths and the cilantro on the feet, and just all this stuff that I could do. Bentonite clay, diatomaceous, I mean, you name it. If it's been known as like a detox thing on the health realm of the internet, I've done it. Okay, so, and I wasn't seeing much improve, and besides the few things that did seem to dissipate slowly, but then overall, his speech just remained an issue, and I prayed night after night for 2 years straight at least, just thinking he would just start talking one day and this would all just be over with. And I should have went and got some kind of diagnosis or just some kind of evaluation. Now, his doctor did see him, but so we have that. But I'll go back later and maybe clip in some of his physicals, and because she writes a very thorough report, and she was writing that he was all over the place. He was developmentally behind. He was couldn't speak. She recommended speech therapy. So she did a very thorough physical and explanations there. So I have that at least as proof. And then I have the most recent one from a couple months ago, where she gave him a completely normal, typical child, assessment. And so, but what I was saying is, there are a lot of parents who have an actual autism diagnosis, like an actual SPD, not SPD, but ASD diagnosis, and then they have, the clean bill of health, that they don't have it anymore. They have that given by their doctors, and so that's proof. That is proof that for the people that don't believe this, that don't believe that these kids can recover, there's a lot of proof out there. There's a lot of parents who do have actual diagnosis and the paperwork there. I, on the other hand, I don't have a diagnosis. He was just going to speech, and we just have listed all of his symptoms, and maybe eventually I can get video and pictures and things like that to kind of illustrate the story a little better. But I do have that. And okay, so this happened at 1, and he was having all these symptoms, and because he wasn't eating hardly anything, he had sensory issues with his food now, texture issues. He would gag. He would, if he smell it or just look at it in front of him, he would gag if he put it in his mouth and felt the texture of it. And so that's a huge problem for a lot of kids, because then you run into issues with deficiencies. Granted, deficiencies are probably one of the reasons this happened in the first place, I think it's like a multifaceted thing. You know, there are a lot of things going on that go into this. So it's not just vaccines. It's not just malnutrition. It's so many factors, and that's why these kids can heal. You know, once they start getting the proper nutrition, once they start getting all these things they need, and start their detox pathways start working a little better, and your body wants to heal. You know, it wants to figure these things out. It wants to heal as long as you have everything in place. So now the nutrition thing, I thought I ate really healthy. I thought we all ate really healthy. I didn't really think I needed to do anything with that, sadly, for a couple years. And so it wasn't until his third birthday that I cried all day, and I was praying and crying, and I'm like, why doesn't he speak yet? You know, after all we've been through for the past 2 years. And thank God, you know, we had so many symptoms dissipate, you know, just completely resolve on their own. Like the hand flapping was gone, the toe walking, things like that had disappeared. The waking up screaming in the night had gone away. But then he was still having to poop in a diaper. Like, he had a thing, he would not get on the toilet. He would pee in his little potty, but he wouldn't poop in it. So we were still dealing with some things, and of course the speech, and of course him darting off, and his behavior. And I hadn't really thought I needed to do anything with diet until, like I said, this I was thinking, what else can I do? I mean, I've done literally everything. What else can I do? And then I happened to see that movie Magic Pill, or the documentary on Netflix about the keto diet. Really, I think it was like paleo type of dieting. And they had this autistic kid on there who went from eating nothing but crackers and stuff to kale and steak. And I was like, oh my goodness, steak. If I can get him to eat steak, that would be a blessing. Because once I started thinking about it, I was like, wow, he's basically like vegetarian or something, because he won't eat meats. He won't eat these sort of foods. So I was just kind of stumped on how do I get him to eat these foods if he has an issue with textures and things like that. So that's what I want to get into, because I know a lot of parents are really confused about what do you even do at that point. And so what you do is you take out everything. This is a huge, huge job, because it's a full-time job. On, you know, you're everywhere you go, the grocery store, you know, whoever comes into the house. Like, I have a husband and his older sister who would bring, you know, chips, things like that into the house.